Hey YouTube, it's me, Brandon Colonel again. Now, the next video that I've got is an update on a few knives that I've done. It's the first time I've done it outside of my house, so I've got to get all the specifics down. Okay, there we go. Now I've got the video set up. Um, the first of all, I'm going to show you the two that I'm giving you an update on. First is the Rothco survival knife that I reviewed maybe a day or two ago, and I'm also going to show you an update on the CRKT Sting boot knife. Both these knives I have already done reviews on, so like I said, this is just an update. Now I'm going to start off with the Rothco survival knife. I looked it up online and found out that they call it like the pilot's knife, and I also looked up the Camillus that is incredibly similar, and guess what it's called? The Aviator. So this is an outright clone of it, but it is nowhere near the same quality. Like I told you before, the edge rolls incredibly badly, but I was actually testing it on a walking stick that I'm making, which, give me a second and I will get that for you. Okay. Basically, this is the walking stick that I'm starting on. It's pretty thick, but I've worked on sticks like this before, so it just takes a little bit of time and effort to size it down. But yeah, I didn't even make it through that entire stick with just simply getting the bark off before this thing had to be resharpened. But also, even after all the work that I put into it, I still couldn't get all the burrs off. But just showing how soft this actually is, the steel is, I was cutting through that, and just the hardness of the wood knocked off the burrs. And just from the way that I was actually cutting, then yeah, the wood itself knocked off the burrs, and so it got the illusion that it was getting sharper as I was actually cutting with the knife, which, all in all, wasn't too far off, but it did okay. It wasn't exactly the best. I actually had to use the back serrations along here a little bit and to cut off some of the knots in the wood, and it did all right. It's not exactly a powerhouse cut, but it's okay. Overall, the knife had a pretty comfortable feel. The tang right here, or should I say the guard, it formed a pretty big hot spot for me. The more that I would cut, the more this would just dig into my knuckle right here for my thumb, and it was pretty bad. Like my thumb is actually still kind of raw, but like it's all white and kind of scarred up, but it's fine. But the leather handle is actually fairly comfortable. I enjoyed the grip on it, but it's just the guard I am not a big fan of. But yeah, this pales in comparison to the quality of the actual Camillus, which I do not have the pleasure of owning one, and seeing this thing and actually dealing with it makes me want to actually go out and buy one, just to actually have a comparison between the two. And honestly, just from the reviews that I've seen on that thing, that is a beast of a knife, and it'll take down any job that you have for it without a single problem. Now, when it actually got dull, then I actually tested out the sharpening stone. It's actually not quite as bad as I thought it would be. it does get a field sharpen on it, but honestly, the very sound of this thing and just how rough of an edge it puts on there was grating against my very soul. It was a horrible sound for those of you that sharpen your own knives, and especially for those of you that take the time to sharpen your knives right. The sound of this thing was just grating against my very soul. I could barely stand it. But because whenever I sharpen my knives, I've got expensive stuff that I use to sharpen my knives. Like, I wouldn't say that I've got anything over $50, but the total amount that I've put into just simply sharpening equipment for only the stuff that I have, not even stuff that I've used in the past, but only stuff that I have, I would say is somewhere around the $90 range, possibly even closer to $100. That's just on sharpening equipment alone. So I've put some money into sharpening equipment. This'll work, but it is not the type of thing that you would want if you're actually looking to truly sharpen your knife. It's only good for a field sharpen and nothing more than that. So it'll work, but you'd want a knife other than this thing, unless this is the only thing it works on, because the knife is so soft. But I haven't exactly tested it on any other knives, because I don't want to ruin the pretty edge on them. But I may test it out on some of the other ones just to find out. But honestly, I wouldn't say that this thing is worth it unless your life is literally depending on that stone. It would work if that's the case, but otherwise I wouldn't push it. The sheath is it's holding up, but it's getting some marks on it from where the knife is going in at. I don't know if you can see that too well because I can't see my computer screen, seeing as it's so bright up. But yeah, there's a couple of marks on it, but otherwise it's actually holding up fairly well. It's not quite as bad as I thought it would be, but I still want to get it replaced. No matter what I do, I still want to get it replaced, but it's probably going to hold on longer than I thought it would. Now on to the CRKT Sting. As I thought, when I actually sharpened this thing, it wasn't nearly as sharp as some people have said it is. Because I've actually seen reviews where people say that this thing is phenomenally sharp. Those people have no clue what phenomenally sharp is. They've never seen a phenomenally sharp knife if they're calling this phenomenally sharp. I mean, I've literally bought $8 knives that are sharper than this. So, but and that's after I put my own edge on it, and I even reprofiled it just a little bit, not too much. But something that I found that was interesting is that you may be able to tell just by looking at it, but when I was first getting this, I tried to sharpen it on a flat stone. Now, a lot of people would say that would be just fine, but the thing is, it's got a slight recurve in it up to about here. That actually dips in somewhat right around here. So there's actually a slight recurve in there. So I actually had to use my rod file to get in there. I could not use my flat stones. So that was actually something interesting that I found out that I didn't realize when I first bought this thing. So if some of you are trying to sharpen it, and you're just wondering why this part down here is just not getting it sharpened at all, that's why. It's because it's got a slight recurve, and your flat stone won't touch it for anything. Now, also, for those of you that ask me about how well of a thrower this might be, this thing sucks at throwing. You cannot throw this knife for anything with any accuracy. Now, if anybody has actually managed to figure that out, you are a genius. You are just a freaky genius when it comes to throwing knives. Because I'm not exactly terrible, but I know what I'm doing with throwing knives, but I could not get this thing to stick once, and I was trying at it for at least a good 10 minutes or so. I couldn't get this thing to stick once. I mean, it would be turning like this in the air. Whenever it was turning like this, it would just like it turn that way. It didn't matter which way I threw it from, whether it was from the handle or from the blade. It didn't matter what way I did it. It would always hit a different place. I mean, even when I don't exactly have a dedicated throwing knife, but I do have knives that can easily be used as throwing knives because they're incredibly balanced and they're nice and small, can fit in your hand very well. They're actually about the same as this. My little excuse me, got the hiccups again. My little black Talon that I've done a review on, that one is my throwing knife. That the hiccups are getting me pretty bad. The little black Talon knife that I have, that's one of my throwing knives. Well, I guess I should say my only good throwing knife. I've got other folders that I've used for throwing knives, just kind of to test out the lock, because I saw just how well the lockup was, and it was actually fairly balanced for a thrower. I've since gotten rid of some of those just because I ended up not liking them. But yeah, so the little black Talon is the only one that I have right now, and that one is phenomenal for throwing. And that one, even if it does shift slightly in the air because of me and what I did to it, then typically, more often than not, it'll still stick in somewhat the exact same area. If it sticks at all, it sticks dead in every single time. There's no odd angles that it would stick at, and just other things like that. And also, if I get it wrong, it'll still, for the most part, it'll still hit on the blade. There's a couple of times when I throw it just too hard, so it has more force behind it, and it'll hit it at the butt end, like right here. But it still wants to hit at the tip every single time that I throw it, as long as I throw it properly. And even if it doesn't stick, it's either really close to the tip, or I didn't throw it with enough force so it hits right at the tip, but it doesn't have enough power to actually sink it in. But this one, no matter what I did, it never acted the same way twice. I could never duplicate a throw from one throw to the other. Just no matter what I did, it was always something different. And so that's when I decided to change tactics and see how well it would actually perform in the hand should I actually get into a situation where I needed to defend my life with it. Now, so when I actually tried to use it, then at first I started with the forward grip, and I tried it like this, and I tried it like this. Both ways can easily come out of your hand, and you can easily slip and then come up on that blade, which, even though it can't cut paper for anything, that'll still cut you up if your hand goes across with that much force. You will get a pretty good sized gash. So I would not recommend using this in forward grip unless you are going for a slash cut. But even then, I still suggest it in reverse grip. This is an easy grip to do with this knife, and plus your thumb, as long as you've got it over the butt of the knife right here, as long as you've got it right over that, it'll still be a little uncomfortable if you go for a stab, because this is by no means a comfortable design. This is meant to be functional and nothing more. This is not meant for comfort at all. Probably the most comfortable way that you can grip this thing is just like this, with one finger on the choil over here, and then your thumb on the other choil over here, kind of getting a pinch grip. And but even like this, you will slip if you try to do anything with it. But so like this, like I said, it won't be the most comfortable grip on the planet, but at least it'll prevent you from slipping. And so this way, it's really good for a fighting style where you're punching a lot. And with this stance, you wouldn't exactly try to punch the person dead on with your fist. You would actually try to punch a little to one side of them, so that way the blade hits them. So that way you've got a lot of force behind it. And I actually tried it on a couple of trees, and the blade actually left a bit bigger gash than I thought it would. So it's actually not too bad for getting a decent cut, as long as you've got a lot of force behind it. And I actually tested on the little black talon as well, just to see what it did. And the little black talon actually had about the same size gash as this, and that one is exponentially sharper. So it doesn't take quite as much force with the talon, but this one definitely can do some damage if you need it to. And one thing that I did is I would slash, and then I would come back down for a stab. And that seemed to be very effective, and it would actually pierce fairly well. And I was stabbing it into a water oak, so for those of you that know what that is, then I don't really need to explain anything to you, but for those of you that don't, that's a really dense tree. And I actually got at least penetration up to here, just from it was from stabbing with my own power. And so that's actually pretty good, for one, for a water oak, and two, for a knife like this, especially with just how thick and beefy this thing is. This is not a light knife. This is incredibly hefty, but it is very unbalanced for those of you that still think it might be a good thrower. That's where the balance point is at. That is way far off of the tang. It's just way too far off the tang for you to get any good for that. So this is an in-hand knife only. And the edge also doesn't last too long. And also, by the way, I don't know if it'll be on all of your knives. Excuse me. I don't know if it'll be on all these CRKT stings, but mine, on one side, it would actually roll the edge pretty bad just when I was sharpening it. I was able to get it out incredibly quickly with my ceramic files, but yeah, one side it did start to roll the edge pretty badly when I was sharpening it. Nowhere near as bad as the Rothco over here. This one was horrible, but yeah, this would definitely have a pretty big burr that would form just during sharpening, and which on both these, that's actually pretty weird, because let me get out the worst sharpening stone ever real quick, just to kind of show you, because when you're sharpening this way, then the burrs are not really supposed to happen. I mean, they do happen, obviously. I had it happen with 2 knives in a row. But the thing is, just the way that it is, it shouldn't form that burr. And so how it did that, and it's always on one side, it never happens on the other. But it would always happen on just that one side. And but sharpening this way is supposed to prevent burrs. Even on the cheapest knives that I've ever bought, I've never had a problem with the burr coming like that. I've had a problem with the knives not being able to keep the edge that I put on them, but never once have I had a problem with the burrs like these, especially when I'm going forward on a cut. Now, but like I said, this one was pretty easy to get it off, but it doesn't keep an edge for very long at all. And this one, for what it is, it should be able to keep an edge longer than just what it's doing. This is a very thick knife, and it should keep an edge longer than just 3/4 the way through one walking stick. I mean, sure, I was cutting into a water oak, but, and again, very thick. But honestly, I mean, get out my EDC right now. I was using this Kershaw Volt 2. This is about maybe a $30 knife, at least when I got it. And I was cleaning up this same walking stick. And this thing is still razor sharp. I could still shave hair with it, slice paper with it, and without a problem. Like, this is still razor sharp. And there was sure there wasn't the bark on it because I cleaned off all the bark with this thing. But the thing is, there was still quite a bit that needed to be cleaned up, and it wasn't exactly easy material to get off. This thing just powered straight through it, got the entire walking stick nice and clean. I mean, there's still little parts here and there that I didn't get, but that's mainly because the stick hasn't dried out completely, so I don't want to do too much work with it. And any more work that I already have done, and it would probably start cracking after that. But yeah, so the Volt 2 did phenomenally well, and like I said, it is still razor sharp. And I went down the entire length of the stick cleaning it up. But with this thing, it just wasn't sharp enough from the beginning to barely even get into the bark. But after I finally got in the bark, then it would leave like a stringy and fibrous strands all the way through. Now, whenever I would go through with my Volt, then which I'm just looking across the walking stick now, seeing if there's any left that I can show you. Here. If you can see, like, all this stuff right here, then that's it coming from the Rothco knife, where it wasn't sharp enough to actually cut off those things. And so I haven't gotten them all off yet, but it is far and above better than what I did with the Rothco. But like I said, this thing is still razor sharp. I did not think that this would be a good whittling knife, but come to find out, this is phenomenal. The only gripe that I really had about this knife while I was whittling with it is the pocket clip. As I said in my review of the Volt 2, that pocket clip is going to form a tremendous hot spot. And just as I thought it would, it did. And I'm starting to get my callus back right here, because that's exactly where it falls. And I already had somewhat of a callus that I was starting to lose from from different things that I've done with my hands. But yeah, that callus is coming back because of this pocket clip. But overall, the handle design on this thing is perfect for that. Next time I try whittling with this, I might actually just simply take off the pocket clip, so that way I can just get rid of that hot spot, because that was really the only gripe that I had with this thing. Because otherwise, it was phenomenal for cutting, and just all the manner of whittling. So, just a little overview. Both these knives suck for edge retention, but this one is good for what it's supposed to do. This one is a piece of crap. The only thing that this is good for is the stone. It'll get a decent field sharpen, if it's the last thing that you have on Earth to sharpen with. It'll at least do decently. And the back end serrations, they're not horrible. Overall, this thing sucks, and it's not worth the money. Get the real thing. You will be so much happier. Have a nice day, YouTube. And as always, stay safe.